Today, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson announced that city managers and supervisors will be coming back to work in person full-time starting in April. And that's about 700 people. Those people will join the 3,500 others who were already working in person full-time. About 1,900 people will still be working a hybrid situation, and more than 500 will stay fully remote. Mayor Wilson says it's not about helping revitalize downtown, but if that happens to be the case, great.
You know, it's not a decision that was based on downtown foot traffic. This is a decision that's based on camaraderie, collaboration. 60% of all of our Portland staff are either new or in new positions since the beginning of COVID. We have a new form of government. We have a new council. We have a new mayor. We have so many reasons to build relationships. That's what it's designed. If the byproduct is downtown foot traffic, is downtown vibrancy, you bet, because after we end unsheltered homelessness, you can bet our next vision for the following year is about revitalizing our community, which starts with having a vibrant urban core.
Now, just last week, Wilson backtracked on a plan to get all city workers back into the office 4 days a week, bowing to fierce union pressure and threats that city employees will simply find remote work elsewhere. The leader of one of the unions representing city workers says they like being remote, arguing it's good for morale and productivity. City workers have often been pointed at as a solution to revitalizing downtown by simply bringing more people here during the week. Because unlike other companies, the city of Portland can't just pack up and leave. But we know other companies are doing just that. Estimates from Greater Portland, Inc., an organization geared toward creating and expanding jobs in the Portland area, show that about 25% of downtown Portland offices are vacant. That's 1 in 4. Across the city, there's nearly 8 million square feet of office space just sitting there, and many of those workers are never coming back. The group's data shows before the pandemic, around 8% of Portlanders worked from home. In 2021, that number shot up to 27.5%, and it hasn't come down much since then. In 2023, about 21% of Portlanders were still working remotely. People who do go back to the office are finding themselves commuting to the suburbs, not downtown. Data presented by Greater Portland last week shows that 57% of companies surveyed by Portland State University last year moved their offices to the suburbs, mainly Tigard, Tualatin, Beaverton, Lake Oswego, and across the river to Vancouver. Many of the companies also rented less office space after they moved.
So of the companies that used to move to downsize, about 59% reduced their office space by 30% or more. So the move was not just a relocation decision for tax reasons or safety reasons, but also downsizing was an important aspect of the new office and the office move.
A PSU survey found that companies moved their businesses out of downtown because of the concerns that we've heard over and over: vandalism, employee safety, parking costs, and taxes. But researchers say the way companies use physical office space is also changing.
So companies have moved away from being this destination where you come and sit from 9 to 5 every day, but more a location where you come to collaborate with your colleagues, to interact, and you may or may not do silent work at the office. You can also do it at home. You can do it at a coffee shop. And this has a huge advantage for companies. Companies have a tremendous pressure to reduce their occupancy cost, whether that's from shareholders, whether that's because the expenses have been going up. And so by focusing more on collaborative space and having more employees in a small amount of space, companies can actually reduce their occupancy costs.
So even with companies moving to the suburbs, office vacancies went up across the board. Greater Portland looked at neighborhoods and suburbs around the city, and everybody saw a steep increase in vacancy from before the pandemic to after, though the smallest increase was in Vancouver. Their office vacancy rate only went up by 0.3%. So say you're someone looking for office space for yourself or your business, you'll certainly have your pick of locations. But what you might be surprised to learn is that you'll probably be paying about the same rate as you would have before the pandemic. Let's show you. The top line on this graph shows the asking rent for office space from 2018 to now. It actually went up a bit from about $31 a square foot to $32. That bottom line there shows the increase in space available. So with prices staying the way they are, Greater Portland says landlords are having to offer more incentives to attract tenants.
They're seeing increased concessions from landlords for new tenants. So that might mean maybe more upfits that the landlord is providing, or a couple of free months of free rent. And those in reality are kind of reducing the rents and maybe attracting more businesses.
And we know the industries that cater to office workers have already been seeing the impact of fewer workers for years, especially in things like restaurants, bars, and hotels. And we're starting to see the impact on a bigger scale too. What's called Portland's market attractiveness has plummeted, which means fewer people are moving here and fewer businesses are opening up shop. Both the city of Portland and Multnomah County are dealing with budget shortfalls that they blame in large part due to reduced tax revenue. So where do we go from here? What do we do with all this space when most office workers just are not going to come back? Now, the obvious idea that many people have turned to is renovating offices into housing. But that has not taken off on a large scale, mostly because of cost. Those at Greater Portland say there could be opportunities for new kinds of businesses to use the space.
I think there are opportunities in some kind of lighter manufacturing areas that traditionally people might not think go into office space, but they often they're not really the typical manufacturers, and they could locate within the downtown. Additionally, there are opportunities, I think, for more creative businesses that are looking for maybe some of the larger spaces. Almost you could think of like a studio space that sometimes are traditionally in older buildings, but within some of these older historic office buildings, or even some of the more modern office buildings, are opportunities for creative businesses to locate there, set up design studios, more creative interactive space. And little by little, I think we're seeing some of that, and hopefully we'll see more of that.
So what do you think should be done with all the empty office space in Portland? Send us your ideas. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.